I never really told you why your mom and I split up.
She cheated on you.
Oh, good. You're in the loop.
On the surface, this is an ensemble comedy, but it feels like loneliness is the emotional engine underneath it. Was that always part of the design?
Yeah, yes, sadly. But by the way, you ask us that and nobody's really honed in on it.
See, that's what I love about the shows that Bill does, is that you'll have that thing thematically, like those elements to a scene or to a storyline. And then you twist it and there's something funny either within it, at the end of it, or it's sort of bookended with something funny. Like there's always a way in and out, which is like life, which is what I love.
You ever been completely surrounded by people and still felt utterly alone?
Yeah, for about 25 years. I'm thinking about that scene in particular. She's such a good actor. And to be able to play a scene like that, that's a very honest and sort of revealing moment for this guy. Like kind of peeling away at the surface. You know, he's somebody who like protects himself. I don't think he's very forthcoming. So to be able to reveal something like that takes a very special character on the other side who he knows he can trust and pretty early on.
Greg and Dylan form fast friendship rooted in loneliness, but there's also a sense that something more could develop there.
Do you know how old I am?
It's your lucky day, Grandpa.
Beyond that shared isolation, what do you think draws these two to each other?
That is the question of the day. Oh, connection. I mean, the literary arts, even though they're both judgmental or make assumptions about the other. That's the beauty of the relationship dynamic that Bill and Matt described to me early on about there's something that could be and yet really delving into the friendship. And that being something that they wanted to witness hone outside of like two people coming together, presumably romantically or otherwise. Like that was something that was really, really beautiful to delve into. And it's two people working across a span of time trying to figure each other out and to figure themselves out.
I mean, my gosh, just outstanding.
Oh, I'm not sure if you've officially met our president, Walter Mann.
Walt seems very intent on bonding with Greg. Why do you think he's so determined to befriend this guy?
Look, it's a very hoity-toity, stuffy Northeast university. And a lot of people are sticking their nose up at Steve, who is a romance novel writer from the Keys. And Walt is just so turned on by his energy and his capacity to be kind and having a wingman. It's so great that Billy wrote a dynamics that is the complete opposite of Scrubs. Whereas I'm constantly pushing Zaki's character away in Scrubs. Walt, I just like a baby's cheeks. I just want to eat Steve. And that kind of hyper-aggressive love doesn't sit well on Steve. That's not what he wants. They don't care. That's my expression of love.
I write books that you're supposed to read at the beach. They are light, they are fun. Characters that you like have sex. The ones you don't get shot in the face.
There's another line early on where Greg admits that Rooster is the version of himself he wishes he was.
Right.
Do you think that's really who he wants to become, or a version he wants to hide inside to sort of avoid the reality of his life?
Wow, that's a great question. I think it could be a little bit of both of those things. Because I think he knows intellectually that that's not going to happen. He is not that person. He's not going to become that person. He's not a superhero. You know, he's just not built that way. The other side of it is it's maybe a part of him aspires to be more like that person, like elements of that person, like someone who is more self-confident and carries himself a little bit differently and doesn't sweat the details as he does in the same way. I think there is an element of pretend there too. He sort of wants to crawl inside, say that that's who he wants to be as protection from who he actually is. But that's an interesting way to look at it.
With Greg specifically, you have a man who writes a fictional hero as the version of himself he wishes he were. Is this a story about reinvention or a story about escape?
Can I go back just a little bit?
Yeah.
We were doing Bad Monkey together and got to know and hang out with Carl Hiaasen a lot and came to love him. He was this very, Carl Hiaasen, if you don't know, is this big best-selling writer who has no ego about it. He's a guy who's very humble and very kind of seems to be navigating all the normal parts of life that we are all navigating. And so we thought when we started to think about this idea for Steve that he would be a good model for that.
And you stumbled into a metaphor we're doing, which is Steve's character very intentionally never went to college because Matt might remember academic college. I don't remember college as much of anything other than a glorious haze, but also a safe place to kind of grow up and find my people and figure out who I wanted to be, what I wanted to be, and to see kids going through that simultaneously while a guy in his late 50s was going through that at the same time was kind of, a cool way for us to explore what it means to be a man of this age. Sounds so sad.
And so I don't think it was meant to be escapism, but more about reinvention. Yeah, about a guy whose life hasn't gone exactly how he wanted it to go, and is there a way at this point, 50s, to recalibrate that?
Honey, why are we in the bushes?
That's them over there. They eat their lunch here sometimes.
So you're stalking them?
Katie's navigating this separation very publicly, and she's also working at a school where her mother's name is literally on a building, and now her father is encroaching on that space too. Does she feel like she has anything that's truly just hers?
Wow, another very thoughtful question.
Really?
This is lovely. In a sweet way, but also for Katie, a very annoying way. Everything that she sort of tells Greg she has for herself, Greg is like, great, we can do that together. So I think Katie's navigating like what is hers, what is part of her mum's identity, what is part of her identity now that her father is there, and how much of herself is already established by her relationship or no longer relationship with Archie. I think the thing she has for herself is her students and is her love of teaching and her aspiration to be like a very, very good teacher. But I think Katie's finding what's hers. I think for a long time it was also the peppermint sticks and the hot chocolate, and Greg has taken those too. So I think maybe that's a bit of a to be continued, that question.
These are interesting questions too, because you can look at it from the vantage point of the actor. Like, you do the research, you think about who these characters are, but then how aware are the characters themselves as to all of these things? And that's a really good question. Does she know whether she has something that is just hers? Has she considered it, or is that just like a big hole that she doesn't understand?
Totally, because I think
for him too.
I think the relationships are really central to the show in a way. I feel like for a long time Katie was like, I'm Archie's wife, he's my husband, we're this couple on campus, and then I think the thing she really has for herself is like now is her independence, which is something that she hasn't really had in any aspect of her life yet. So she's sort of a late bloomer, which I think is nice because there's so many coming of age tangents and themes in the show.
Katie?
Hey. Walking the dog.
To me, the end of Katie's journey would be her feeling, no matter what she chooses to do with her romantic life or her professional life, feeling autonomous and independent, and someone that doesn't need anybody to rely on other than themselves. I've had to face that my daughter's like that in real life, so in the occasional times that she does hit me up, it's such a gift, you know what I mean? And it's intentionally why we designed her character, someone she even takes the time to say, even when she landed at this school, she didn't have time to build a community. She met this guy right away, fell in love, became his wife rather than her own person. And so seeing her claim an identity is, again, metaphorically kind of what we're doing, in the show with all the main characters.
Katie has been humiliated, and I think that you owe it to her.
I love her. I do. I love her.
Phil, you're no stranger to a romantic triangle, but Archie's situation is...
And what about the characters?
Is that a dig or is that a compliment?
Well, I think it's safe to say that Archie's situation is far more complicated than Jamie's ever was. How does the dynamic between Archie, Katie, and Sonny compare to that of, like, Jamie, Roy, and Keeley?
I guess that Jamie was only shagging one of them,
This is true.
whereas Archie's got his fingers in many pies. It's a terrible turn of phrase, sorry. But it's so much more complicated for Archie in the respect that he is having to come face to face day on day with the outcome of this mess that he's creating. And he's lived so much of his life from a place of privilege and just assuming that everything will work out fine because it has until now. And Jamie, I suppose, he was far more of he just backed himself to the hilt. Whereas I don't think it was from a place of privilege. It was just that he was like, he'd been told that he's excellent at what he does. And he has no reason to think that that wouldn't continue. But he was learning day by day. And I think Archie is struggling with that a little more throughout our season.
I love you. And I think we can get through this.
She's pregnant.
Do you think Archie ever saw fatherhood in his near future?
What I think he probably would call it is he probably saw legacy at some point. He would probably call it and he's going to have a kid called like Archie Bates II, isn't he? That's probably what he would imagine. Yes. Yeah.
It's definitely the second versus junior.
Yeah. But I think that probably wasn't on the cards for him because he was like, it would detract from him being the centre of attention, maybe. But he wouldn't say that. I don't think he wouldn't be cognitive of that.
You are now at a stage where you can build something new and populate it with people who already speak your language. I was trying to keep track of just how many alumni of yours are in this. John C. McGinley, Phil Dunster, Alan Ruck, Connie Britton, Rory Scovel, Rick Glassman pops up, all previous collaborators. At this point in your career, what does it mean to build something new with that kind of shared history?
I've been oft accused or said that I hire the same people over and over. And I say, what a great gift to get to spend time with talented people that you would want to spend time with anyway. I'm going to keep doing it and no one can stop me. Matt was nice enough to let me hire some of these people for two reasons. One is TV now, you have to grab an audience and grab the characters' voices so quickly. I'm a dinosaur, Ryan. We used to have like 15 episodes so you would get to know the characters. And now if people don't think that father and daughter is real or those friendships are real within 2 episodes, they move to one of the other 1,000 shows. So that shorthand is very helpful. Matt was very specific about this. He only let me do it if I policed very hard that they were not playing the same characters or doing the same things. And that's me having to give him kudos for something that he really protected.
And they did exceed my expectations. All of them. And I mean, I was never against any of them, but I was.
It'd be fun to create a feud.
Yeah. But I had concerns just about this being a repeat of some of the things that he's done before, which
if it weren't for Matt, John McGinley could have easily been Dr. Cox. If it weren't for Matt, Alan Ruck could have easily been Stewart from Spin City, but he has such a specific voice and those people are so funny. The only one that tricked me was I'm so dumb when it comes to accents, and I think it's such a magic trick that when Phil Dunster showed up, I thought he really was like Jamie Tart. And he started speaking in a different accent. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, Bill, that was like kind of a blue collar, Manchester accent I was doing on that show. That's not me at all. I'm like, this is like a magic trick. You're completely different. So that was funny.
You've worked with Bill Lawrence across several projects now. What is it about the way he runs a set or writes a story that keeps you coming back?
Look, if you're lucky enough to work with somebody more than a few times, like I've been lucky enough to do this with Oliver Stone 6 times. I've been lucky enough to be with Billy for 10 years on Scrubs, 2 years on Ground Floor, and now Rooster. And like you with your editors, you get a shorthand and you get to know each other. And so a lot of the clutter goes away. And so when Billy first told me about this project, it wasn't called Rooster, it was just something. We were in my hothouse and he said, do you mind if I steal your life? You know my secret? Hot sauna, cold plunge every damn day. You get the same endorphins you get from cocaine, only it lasts 2 hours instead of 9 minutes. Actors being chock full of insecurity and inadequacy. I had no idea what he was talking about. And so I said, that sounds very flattering, but what's up?
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to write something for Steve Carell, and I want you to be in it. I'm like, steal my life. So many times actors lean into eccentricities and foibles and accents and regional sounds, and we bask in those because it's a place to hide. Mm-hmm. You can hide behind an accent. You can hide behind a tick. But this was you, John C., playing John C., or letting Walt Mann, who's the character, play John C. McGinley. And that flips everything upside down. And so on paper, that sounds like it should be easier, but it wasn't, because it takes some spine to go into John McGinley and unearth, excavate loneliness and inadequacy. And I dropped 44 pounds. And so, because I knew I wasn't going to have any clothes on the whole time. And that's very slippery, man. Your perception of who you are at 66 doesn't match up with what you were able to do at 35.
Has it been 15 minutes yet?
90 seconds, Greg.
Well, you're going to love the contrast with the cold plunge. I can't wait.
It almost sounds like it would be more difficult, like you have to sort of get out of your own head in a way that you wouldn't if you weren't just playing an amalgamation of yourself.
Yes. When leaning into Bill and surrendering to his vision of John McGinley became the task, there was no small amount of surrender. And surrender isn't what most of us do for a living. We want to impose our will on something. We want to shape something. And this was a surrender to Bill's vision.
He's with her, and I'm packing up and moving into the dead hockey coach's house.
How did the hockey coach die?
I think he killed himself because his father was focusing on the wrong part of the story.
You're both stepping into a Bill Lawrence show surrounded by actors who have worked with him before. Did it feel like entering an existing creative shorthand?
Definitely. But I think everyone got the shorthand almost instantly. The first table read that we had, he said, we've written this. It's 95% ours because we came up with it. Within a couple of weeks, we want you to have ownership of this. We want to only have a small percentage of it because we wrote it, but we want you to embody these characters. We want you to have ownership. So I think that speaks to the shorthand. So he invited everybody in immediately. Like, this is our world, but it's your world. It's not mine or anyone's individually. It's everybody's, which I thought was a great way of starting off.
Yeah, absolutely. He also said something along the lines of, I only work with my friends, so this is going to be fun, which is which is just a lovely place to feel kind of confident that you're among Bill Lawrence's friends and have been sort of like called up to the great honor that is to be somebody that Bill Lawrence is like, hey kid, can you do this?